John McDonnell, Chancellor Exchequer. It's fantastic to have you here, and great speech that you did just before. So we're here in the North East, like really, an area of very strong working class heritage. And a lot of people, if you had came here in the 60s or in the early 70s, you would have seen factories, shipbuilding, yards, mines. Working people had it very, they had it a lot better than what they did today. And people could afford to rent, people could afford to put food on the table, and they had an element of job security. Now, if you contrast that with today's youth on zero contracts being consistently exploited, do you think you could tell us about what Labour's economic alternative under Jeremy Corbyn would be to bring back that investment?
Okay. I'm old enough to remember this place in the 70s and 80s, and I'm old enough to remember visiting it. And I can remember the way it was the hive of industry for a lot of the country as well. It wasn't just for this region. The employment it gave was skilled workers on decent wages. There were still issues, let's be honest about it. There were still issues about what was happening to the long term about investment. But this is a classic example of deindustrialisation within our country itself, where private investors, industries in private control, failed to plan for the long term, failed to invest in the long term, and as a result of that, failed to compete. What we want to do when we go back into power, we've opened up these discussions now. I've set up this Economic Advisory Council. We're doing various reviews, bringing people in, trade unionists as well as entrepreneurs, as well as economists and others. And what we're looking at is how do you rebalance the economy. George Osborne's been talking about rebalancing the economy, and nothing's happened really.
And he's lost his job as well.
And he's lost his job, quite rightfully so. But Philip Hammond isn't going to be any different. And the way you rebalance the economy is you do long-term patient investment. One of our economic advisors is a woman called Mariana Mazzucato, and she put forward the concept of the entrepreneurial state. So the state has a role. If you leave it to the free market, you'll get what you've got already, which is a decline in the manufacturing base, the failure to invest in the long term, either in infrastructure or skills, and as a result of that, you have an economy which is based upon, all growth in this economy at the moment seems to be based on low pay, zero-hour contracts, and insecure work. What we want to do is basically we'll set up a national investment bank. It'll have a Bank of the North, where we're looking at £500 billion worth of investment in infrastructure and skills. And as a result of that, I think what we can do is restore the manufacturing base in the area, but it won't be like before. I want to transform this country, not just into the financial centre of Europe, but also the new technology centre of Europe. That's where the high skills are, but that's where the high wages are as well. That means linking up with academic institutions as well, research bodies and others. So I think this region will buzz, absolutely buzz. Why? Because there's native skills still there. It's always been an area that actually is built, made, created. And if you look at the talent of working people in this area over centuries, you can see it's all there for the harvesting and everything. So that's the opportunity. It does mean, though, at this point in time, we have to recognise this is the ideal time to do it. Interest rates are low. The interventions in terms of what we can do to borrow to invest in the long term, this is just the right time. We've even got some Tories talking about investment of this sort. So we're winning the argument. The old Gramsci concept that you hegemonise the debate. You become so rational what you're arguing that your opponents adopt your policies as well. They're doing it, but they're doing it for a different reason. They're to maximise their profits. And for the first time in, certainly since the Second World War in this country, more of our wealth, more of our income is going to shareholders and others than it is going to workers. So you can see how they're rebalancing the economy in the interest of shareholders and the wealthy and the rich and the corporations, rather than the interest of working people and long-term investment. So that's the plan. But one of the issues we've got to address, and this is what I want you to think about as well, is how do you sit down within a region and start planning your own economy in the long term. Now that means bringing people together, trade unionists, entrepreneurs, whole communities, academics, economists, others, ordinary people just coming off the street as well. Start holding economic seminars within the area. I'll come up and help you. Talking about where do we want to be in 20 or 30 years' time, how do we want to get there, what do we need, what are the ingredients of that. So our socialism has got to be community socialism, and that means planning the economy on the basis of community engagement. Not some sort of Stalinist 5-year plans or something like that, but real discussion about where do we want to be, how do we get there.
I think that not only makes economic sense, but it's actually exciting, and it's no longer just individuals clinging to a log as they flow down a river of like free market fundamentalism. It's about actually what do we want our society to look like, and economics is a part of that, which not a lot of people probably believe it is at the minute.
We're trying to raise the level of debate overall on economics in this country, but the good thing about it, we've got, well, your generation in particular, but all of us at the moment, we've got a window of opportunity, because people realise now more and more the market doesn't work on its own. It just doesn't work. We saw it with the crash of the banks. We're now seeing it with regard to what's happening to our manufacturing base. So there's an opportunity now where we can just move in onto that vacuum of the debate, and that is about the sort of socialism that we want.
Yeah, spot on, brilliant. So the second point I wanted to make now is, as you know, when Labour was previously been in government, there's a sort of a sense of almost neglect around the north, and we've seen a similar sort of thing in Scotland amongst the Labour Party in sort of very unenthusiastic and disenfranchised with the Labour Party. Now, the question I want to ask you is why is it so important that we don't return the political debate back to the very same complacent status quo politics that has led to the rise of parties such as UKIP or the SNP in Scotland, but specifically this region? What's Corbyn's alternative? What's Jeremy's alternative to be able to bring back those Labour voters who have unfortunately been disenfranchised with the party in the past?
So in the north it's hit us in particular, so it isn't just that. I represent a working class multicultural community on the west of London. Been there 40 years. I was from Liverpool originally, moved, like a lot of people, moved south. My family moved south because they couldn't get a job, so they moved south to get a job, simple as that. But I represent an area, I live in the most deprived ward in my borough. I represent a multicultural working class community, but so it isn't just the north that feels left behind. There's in pockets of deprivation right the way across the country, and we've got to unite those people. And the reason they feel that the most common thing you get on the doorstep with ex-Labour supporters is, I didn't leave you, you left me.
Yeah.
You weren't talking to me about what my needs were. So if you have a situation where we did, unfortunately at times, where we weren't, take the examples of what people, I want a roof over your head, So if we weren't building the council houses, you can see how people got angry with the failure of us to supply the houses that they need. People working in public services, they saw Labour privatising as well as Tories with the NHS and elsewhere too, so you can understand why they got angry. And then, unfortunately, new Labour supports some of the welfare benefit cuts too. And we saw that last year when Labour MPs abstained.
Yeah.
Jeremy and I and others voted against the welfare bill. We had Labour MPs abstain, Angela Regal, Owen Smith and people like that. So you can see why people thought, well, Labour's deserted me, who speaks for me now? What we're doing is rebuilding that confidence, but it's going to take time. And we rebuild it by first of all having that conversation with people, what are your real needs? What do you think your needs are? How do we satisfy them? This isn't about parachuting politics or politicians from above. It's about building from the grassroots. So if it is about housing, how do we build the homes? What sort of homes do we build? How should they be designed? Where should they be? What sort of lengths should they be? If we can't build them fast enough, are we going to control rents? If there's that property standing empty, why can't we give power to the local authorities to take them over? It's that sort of thing. So you get the community involved in developing those policies at the local level. It's the same in every policy area. But I think they want some clear messages from us as well. So on privatisation of the NHS, we're not going to private. We're going to end all privatisation. We're going to end the PFIs and all of them. So some clear message will restore confidence. It's going to take a while. In Scotland, it's going to take a long while, I think. But the SNP it's irritating because the SNP have sort of dominated in Scotland. But in Parliament, the SNP members say they're anti-austerity, but in Scotland, the SNP is implementing austerity. So there's contradictions in Scotland with regard to the SNP. I think that will eventually implode and give us the opportunity. But we've got to have a base of solid community involvement, solid policy making, and a vision of the society we want to create. The society we want, that we've been arguing for, Jeremy and I, is one that's radically fairer, more equal and more democratic, based upon a prosperous economy that's economically and environmentally sustainable, but where that prosperity is shared by all. That we've got to get that message across in concrete terms in every local community.